Hi everybody, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel, Hallmark Plus More, where we watch and talk about shows, movies, mysteries, Hallmark ornaments, and anything else that floats our boat. So today I'm going to be reviewing NCIS Origins, Season 1, Episode 12. So before I get into my review, I just want to say thank you to everybody who subscribes, likes, watches my videos, comments. I love your comments. I read them all, so thank you so much. So getting into this episode, this episode wasn't really about Gibbs. I mean, obviously the show is supposed to be about Gibbs, and you definitely see it narrated by Mark Harmon, who we love, as an older Gibbs reliving this. But as the show goes on, we're seeing certain episodes focus on different characters, which I understand. We want to know the people around young Gibbs, but I just feel like, they really push this show to be all about young Gibbs. So as much as I like seeing the other characters, I feel like some of the episodes really keep him as like a back character. Which, like I said, I don't mind learning about who was around him. I just want to make sure you really promoted this show to be about Gibbs. So I just want to make sure we kind of focus on that. That being said, this episode was kind of emotional. It was a really touching episode for me personally. So the beginning of the show, you see a flashback, and a specific flashback that they showed kind of made me believe that this case was going to be brought up. So a couple episodes ago, I want to say it was like episode 4, I'm not sure, but there was this little girl that Gibbs saved. Somebody had been killed. She witnessed it, and she wasn't the person they were going after. A hitman was going after a specific person, and this little girl was in the house. She sees the person get killed, and she runs outside in the woods. So now they're trying to find her. Gibbs finds her in the woods, puts her with Mary Jo, as protection, because at the time they don't know who the target was, and like I said, you find out it wasn't the child. However, the hitman finds out that the child was a witness, so now he's going after the little girl. She stays at Mary Jo's. Long story short, Gibbs ended up going to Mary Jo's to give the little girl a toy, kills the hitman, because the hitman goes to Mary Jo's to kill, the witness. With hitmans, leave no witnesses. So basically, Gibbs saves this little girl twice, finds her in the woods, and then was at Mary Jo's house when the hitman goes to kill the girl. And again, the girl witnesses a second murder. So, I mean, that episode, my heart went out to that girl. She was a sweet little girl. Her name was Mildred. So you see a flashback of her saving Mildred, and I'm like, okay, something's going to come up. Reason being, the end of that episode, they let you believe maybe there's a mole in NCIS, because how did the hitman know to go to Mary Jo's house? There was a handful of people that knew that little girl was staying with Mary Jo. So they left the episode like, Gibbs killed the hitman, the little girl's safe. But how did he know to go there, right? Like, who told the hitman where to go? So they never told us. And like I said, this was episodes ago. So when I saw that in the flashback, I was like, okay, we're going to find out there's a mole at NCIS. We're going to find out how the hitman knew to go to Mary Jo's. And then the first scene in the show, you see older Gibbs kind of narrating about a story his mom used to tell him about this little mouse, right? And you're listening to the story, but you're kind of watching Koloski, probably going to say that name wrong, but he's the older gentleman that has been in NCIS forever, and he's in charge of the evidence room. So you see him walking in the morning, nobody's there, he's turning on the lights, right? And somebody breaks into the evidence room. it's like trashed. Like they don't just break in, they like make a mess of everything. And it turns out $41,000 was stolen from the safe. So who knows if they stole anything else, but this is the chain of evidence, right? I mean, this is a major thing. If the lawyer says, well, there's a break in the chain of evidence, that could get a bad guy off. So this is like a major deal. Anytime somebody breaks into the evidence locker, evidence room, it is definitely, messed up a lot of different cases. So the room is completely like papers everywhere. So he's just like really, it's personal. Like you could just see it's really affected him. Like everybody's walking in like, are you okay? And then he just kind of screams at everybody to get out, right? Because they're taking pictures. It's like a crime scene. You're trying to get fingerprints. You want to find out, how they came in, what did they take. If it, besides the money, you find out they came in through the locker room down in the basement. They broke a window and came in. So, then you're trying to find, like, how come nobody was there? Well, JJ, the guy that was supposed to be, there that night, got a call about a missing person. It was a bogus call, I think just to get him away from, the office so that somebody could break in. But while that happened, you see Mary Jo walk in and she's showing off a picture frame of her and Millie. So I was like, okay, my hunch is right. You showed it in the flashbacks, and then within the first 10 minutes of the show, you're seeing Mary Jo, like, still in contact with Millie, but the fact that, she's bringing up her name, I know this has something to do with that, right? But what could it be? Because the hitman's dead. It's the mole. Like, I always kind of thought about that episode, like, are you gonna give me until next season? NCIS Origins, please tell me who the mole is. Please tell me how we knew how to go to Mary Jo's. So I was kind of excited watching this episode because I knew they were hinting that we were going to find out, right? But like I say, it's kind of sad when you see Kowalski kind of break down like that. And the evidence room was his room. They did roll call, they checked all the evidence every day, they had a schedule, they had a routine, right? He comes in every morning, turns on the lights, he even like bakes bread, leaves food for everybody. Like this, he's been with them for like over 25 years. This was kind of what he did, right? This was his responsibility. He took pride in it, and everybody went to him. So like I said, he was kind of off. He yelled at everybody to get out, and then everybody thinks, okay, he's picking stuff up and trying to put everything away. But in reality, he kicked everybody out, and then he kind of had like a moment himself, and he wrote a resignation letter. And he was like, I don't want to walk up the stairs to Wheeler's office, so I'm not trying to make a big deal out of this, but I left the letter at the bottom of the stairs. I'm leaving. Right? So like he doesn't help get the evidence room back in order. He like basically has some kind of breakdown, like mentally something hit him, and he's like having flashbacks, and he's like, I can't take it. He resigns. So everybody's like, what's going on, And Kenny, Kenny was the CI that they were talking to. Herm was a young kid. He wasn't out in the field. He made a mistake. So they put him into the evidence room with Kowalski, and he's been with them, I think, for over a year. And we find out after he confronts him, he asked to be there so that he could work with him because he's been there for so long, and he's he knows what he's doing, and he wanted to learn from somebody who's been in the field for a long time. So it's one of those things where if you make a mistake out in the field, they give you desk duty, right? You've heard that term. So that's kind of what happened with Herb. and he's enjoyed being in the evidence room with Kowalski. So they're like, look, he resigned. You need to do this yourself. He's like, I don't know if I can get everything in order like he did. And he's like, you can do it. You have to. He resigned. So he goes home. He's real quiet, right? And so something triggered. That room being trashed triggered something. And I know that he served. So I'm thinking, okay, is this something to do with, the time that he served in the military? And it does. It shows him at home, and he's listening to like a record, not a videotape, not a cassette tape, but like a record player. And it's him. So he's listening to a recording of himself talking about his time in the military. And what you find out was he was actually a POW, which means prisoner of war, for 2 years in North Korea. So, I mean, he's saying they took everything from me. I had one little mini corner in a room. So basically, he was a POW for 2 years, and he didn't even have a room. He had like a corner. So, and then he said one of the guards walked by and a pebble kind of went towards me. He grabbed that pebble and he said that's all that he had. So it was kind of sad, because he showed flashbacks, like I said, of him in this North Korean whatever camp or whatever they put him in for 2 years. And then he says, and as he's listening to himself, he's grabbing that pebble. So that pebble from however many years ago that he was in that war, he still has the pebble and he's holding on to it. So, I mean, he's saying that's all he had. So, obviously, I'm assuming, this evidence room being trashed, that's all he had, right? And now it's gone. So, he feels like, kind of same thing that he felt before. I've been here for 25 years. My focus has been this room and now it's gone. So, little sad to kind of see his background because he really closed off. I mean, I don't know when he made these recordings for being a POW, but it was just kind of sad because, you saw the image of him as a POW in that corner with his little pebble. So, I don't know what it's like to be a prisoner of war, and every area is different. Every country treats their prisoners differently. So he might have gone through a lot of pain. We don't know. So reliving that, whatever he was treated like, however his experience was, him standing in that evidence room, it being trashed, brought back those images, and he just said, I'm done, I'm resigning. So, like I said, that's why I say this episode was kind of sad, because you're kind of reliving that with him through his eyes, and it's sad, right? Because after all those years, he has this pebble. So he's thinking his life has meaning. He was like, when I got out and I saw the world and I saw the sun for the first time in 2 years, like I was gonna, make something of myself basically. And now he's going, but I didn't. My world was an evidence room and it's done. So, on the other side of this episode, talking about the case, they're trying to find out who broke in. The $41,000 was from a drug bust, cocaine drug bust. So they find out there's cocaine on the money. So, that definitely helped. Then they found out it was an inside job. So before they find out it was an inside job, they're going to look at the people from the coke bust. And they had something to do with a gambling ring. So when they go visit them at the park, Layla runs into this guy that she made out with a couple episodes ago. So she's talking to this guy, and Gibbs is talking to the guy at the park. And he kind of insinuates that it has something else to do. There's another gambling ring and has something else to do with this hitman. And Gibbs is like, but like the hitman's dead, right? So they're trying to figure out like, why is he insinuating it has to do with this, right? Is he just throwing the guilt off of his own organizational stuff, what he's involved with? But at the same time, they don't think so. So they're investigating that, right? And it's interesting that they're investigating that because, like I said, Gibbs is seeing Layla kind of talk to this guy. But he kind of told Gibbs, like, things aren't what you think. They're not who, what they seem to be. So they're all trying to figure out, like, what is he really talking about. And they go to, obviously, like I said, the hitman named Thatcher, he's dead, but they go to his dad, because in that Millie episode they questioned his dad, and he's older and senile, and they're like, how did he know to go to Mary Jo's? And he didn't really say anything. So then I'm like, okay, the dad knows more than we're thinking. But remember, they didn't tell you in that episode. They just made you think it's some kind of mole, or the dad knew and told his son. And it turns out his dad died, so they're not going to get anything in that. So now you're like, how are they going to figure it out? So, meanwhile, while, Herb is trying to get the evidence room back in order, he actually goes to Kowalski's house because he has the question about one of the abbreviations. And Kowalski's like, I have a key under the desk. You could have just called. You didn't have to come here. But her wanted to have kind of like a one-on-one, because he kind of felt hurt. Like, look, I've worked with you for a whole year. I thought we were friends. I asked to be transferred to evidence so I could purposely work with you, because I wanted to learn from you, because I knew you were experienced. I knew you had knowledge and wisdom, and I wanted to learn from you. And I feel like I deserved better, basically, of not even saying goodbye and just leaving a note for Wheeler that you resigned. So I feel like he kind of wanted to confront him. So even though he said he was there for some abbreviation, I think he wanted to confront them. And then he kind of basically tells Herb, which is basically what I said earlier. He was like, my whole life was that room. You can tear it down and build it up in one day. I was supposed to be more than that. And so when he says I was supposed to be more than that, that's when he was referring to when he got out of the POW camp. He was like, I'm going to do something with my life, right? I'm going to do something more. I'm going to be better than this. And so he's realizing, I let myself down. I'm holding this pebble. I was going to be better. Now I'm in charge of an evidence room. And he's like, you built it back up. And Herb was like, yeah, but that's not the point. And he goes, that is the point. Like, my whole life is a room that can be torn down in an hour and built back up in one day, right? So I think, like, that's kind of what he was saying. Like, my life has no purpose. And, and then Herb is like, you know what? Throw the freaking pebble away. Like, if that makes you sad, throw it away. You're worth more than that, right? You saved me, is what he says. And I think that's interesting that he said that. Like, look, you're holding on to this pebble, and it's not always going to bring you good memories. And if that's how you feel about it, then throw it away. Like, you're holding on to this and it's making it worse. So I thought that was interesting, and you could still kind of see that it resonated with Kowalski, but he was still like, I'm not coming back. So Layla, and then speaking about the case again, Layla and Gibbs kind of have a moment. They kind of imply like that Gibbs was coming in early because Layla said she might have been coming in early to do paperwork. And so they kind of hinted like Gibbs wanted to spend some alone time with her, which I thought was odd because, I guess people assume she could be his love interest, and you can kind of tell Layla is concerned and really cares for Gibbs, but they haven't really explored it in a boyfriend-girlfriend kind of way. I don't have a problem with Layla. I think she's a nice person. I just think I personally don't want her to get involved with Gibbs in a relationship, like a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, because from what we've seen so far as Gibbs' life, he needs a really steady friend. Like, he needs somebody that he can talk to. Everybody that he becomes close to passes away. His wife and daughter. The landlord, that was his best friend that kind of got him into Flexi and kind of encouraged him to go into NIS. Frank's is also his boss. So he doesn't really have anybody. So it's not that I don't want him to be in a relationship with her. It's just I want her to be that solid friend that he can go to and rely on and not have to worry like, oh, we just made out, or maybe she's mad at me because I didn't send her flowers, or, all that relationship that can get in the way of a friendship. So, like I said, I don't have anything against them getting in a relationship. I just feel like we really need to see Gibbs have some kind of steady friendship that doesn't involve anything. The friendship he had with the landlord, I loved that. And then you find out she had cancer and she dies, and you're like, Gibbs needs that solid relationship. And I was hoping in Layla that would be it, but we'll see what happens. So when they kind of imply that he was coming in early just to have alone time with her, like, what was that about? Like, did I miss an episode? Did I miss an episode where they talked about liking each other or something? Like, I just feel like I missed something with that. So they kind of talk about it for a moment, and Gibbs says, hey, he was the guy that you were talking to at the park when I was talking to the CI, and while they were talking about that, they were in the locker room, and that's when Layla kind of looked past Gibbs, and that's how they figured out it was an inside job. They were like, hey, that ladder was moved, that window was broken from the inside. So once they find out it's an inside job, I'm like, yes, that's kind of what I was implying. And the original Mildred case, that there was some kind of mole. You never told us how the hitman got to Mary Jo's house. So I was like, okay, yes, who's the inside man? Like, because I like everybody in NCIS or in NIS. So I'm like, who could it be? So once they find out, I mentioned earlier that the money was laced with cocaine from a coke bust, Frank's got real excited, kind of got a smile on his face. They bring in the canine unit, they bring in the sniffing dogs. Now that they know it's an inside job, it's going to be easy, right? If the money's still there. So the dogs sniff it out. They go to a cabinet, they find the money, they find out it's Roger. So, you've seen Roger a couple times. He had the same office as Vera, so I was like, okay, maybe Vera knew something. She didn't. But anyways, they kind of interrogate Roger, and basically Roger is saying, look, I have a gambling problem. First off, before I say this, Mike Franks is great in interrogation. When they find out it's Roger, and he admits it because he found the money, and with the canine unit, Mike Franks goes in there and everybody's watching, right? Because when there's a mole, everybody wants to see the interrogation, right? You got Mary Jo there, you've got Vera, you've got, Wheeler's even there, you got Gibbs, you got Layla, you got Randy. So everybody's watching this, right? So Mike Franks walks in and he's like, how long have you been working for NIS? 7, 8 years, and he's talking to him, why are you going to betray us? And he's like, I got a gambling problem. I owe my bookie. He said he'd hurt my mom, so I thought I'd take the money. And with it being kind of like an inside job, everybody who's watching Mike Frank's interrogation is like mad. If you knew where the money was in the safe, why'd you trash the room? And and everybody's like wanting to know why, right? Because anytime it's an inside job, they want answers. So, but Mike Franks is Mike Franks. He's great in that room, and he kind of goes slow, and that's what he says. He owed money to a bookie. The bookie said he was going to hurt his mom, so Roger went for the safe, but he wanted to look like, that somebody broke in because he didn't want to go straight to the safe. So to answer the question, that's why he trashed the room. He kept the money there because he was afraid to give it to him or to take it. So then Franks is, like I said, Mike Franks and Gibbs. Mark Harmon was so good in the interrogation room and regular NCIS, but he kind of looks like he's ready to leave, and then Mike Franks casually goes and asks about the hitman. As soon as he asks about Hatcher, the hitman's name, Roger starts shaking his foot. Like, you could tell he's nervous, and Mike totally sees it, and he calls him out on it. Why you lying? And he's like, I got into this jam before, and a guy tracked me down and offered me $25,000 for the location of a little girl, Mildred. He said nothing bad would happen, but I couldn't let him hurt my mom. So Mary Jo is one of the people watching the interrogation, and she is pissed. Like, you see it all, like she's just like steaming. And if you watch the show regularly, you know Mary Jo is one of the nicest people in the entire show. I love Mary Jo. She's got sass, but she does so much for everybody. She's basically the secretary of all of NIS, but she does so much more. But if they push her, too far, she's like, "Look, I don't do all that." Like, I just love Mary Jo. She's one of my favorite characters. So to see her like go, like, the expression "see red," like she was just livid. And because she's, Roger's admitting, like, I told the hitman where the little girl was. He said he wasn't going to hurt her, but I had to tell him because I was in a bind and I couldn't let him hurt my mom. But like, Mike Franks, is okay. Like, he got the confession, he found out who the mole was, so he got that solved. And then as he's walking out the door, he's still in the room, Roger. Mary Jo's like, "Just give me a minute with him." And Mike Franks goes, "Sure." And I'm like, and you don't see what Mary Jo says to Roger. But I'm telling you, man, I would have loved to have been a fly on that wall. I don't know if the tape was rolling, if she physically hurt him, or she just went off on him. But man, she was like steaming. Because she loves that little girl. You could tell she had a relationship with that little girl. And they even said, when they found out and they were doing research that, this 41,000 had to do with the hitman Hatcher, they immediately got security for him, because Mary Jo went to Mike Franks and was like, "How are you protecting her?" And he's like, "Look, she's with her dad, and her dad's military, so I mean, he's got the skills, and I have 10 security people watching the house. Like, Millie is gonna be okay." But you could tell Mary Jo was kind of taking her in, and kind of, adopted her, so to speak. So I just love that mama bear coming out of her. It's a side you don't see, but as a parent, I 100% can relate, right? So I mean, I loved seeing her get angry, because I feel like that is so believable and so realistic. I mean, that would be me. That would be any parent, right? So, at the end, you see Layla calls Eddie. And Gibbs kind of said to her, when Gibbs and Layla had that conversation, like, "Look, you should call Eddie if you miss him. He was a good guy." So you see at the end of the episode, she's calling him. And then you see Herm. Kind of at the beginning of the episode, how I told you kind of see Kowalski. He's coming in the morning, nobody's there, he's turning on all the lights, he's putting his bread that he made for the whole, staff in the staff room or the break room, and then he's going to the evidence room, turning on the lights. So he's kind of like the first person in the morning, because like I say, evidence room is his thing. So Herm is doing it now that he's resigned. He's flipping on all the lights, and he goes to unlock the evidence room, and you hear somebody behind him, and you turn around, and it's Kowalski, and he goes, he throws him the pebble that he had from POW, and then he says, "We got work to do." So I think he came back because of what Herb said to him, like, "Look, you saved me. You think that you don't matter, that you were going to make a difference after you were a POW, and this pebble you've held on to, you were going to make a difference, and now you're saying your whole life is a room that can be torn down and brought back up in one day. But you're important. You saved me. You helped me. I requested to work with you." So, like, I feel like that heart to heart is the reason he came back, and he gives him, and Herb even says, like, "Throw the pebble away. Like, if it's bad, like, throw it away if that's it." And I think, like, Kowalski never thought of it that way. So when he came in, he kind of handed him the pebble and was like, "We got work to do." So I love that, because I feel like they have this friendship. And you don't really realize the impact your coworkers have on you, or your mentors, or, your leadership. And I think that was really good for him, and your own kind of skeletons in your closet. I always, always, always tell people, you don't know what they're going through. right? Like people say to me, "Oh, you smile all the time. You must be so happy." I mean, I smile all the time. I'm happy. God makes me happy. But I don't have a perfect life. I had nothing but, right? We all have problems. But we don't have to be angry and mean all the time. So just because I smile all the time doesn't mean my life is perfect. It means I have a lot of things going on in my life, but I choose to smile and be happy, even though, there's a lot of things going on. So keep that in mind. You know what I mean? That's what I tell people. You don't know what people are going through. Be kind, because you don't know what they're going home to. And in this case, we didn't realize that he was a POW for 2 years and it affected him so bad. And this one thing that happened at work triggered him. And I say triggered because everybody has their triggers, right? Even mental health, it's not a big deal. The evidence room got trashed. We'll clean it up. No, it was to him because it triggered. It triggered, right? So, you don't know what people are going through. So be nice, be kind, Just because somebody looks happy doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going through a really hard time. So be nice, be kind. And that's all I'm going to say. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Like I say, it was kind of sad to see that personal aspect of him, but I like that he had that heart to heart, realized he did matter. They did enjoy working with him, and he made a difference, especially in Herb's life. So I love that, he is making a difference and he's realizing that. So, keep that in mind. We're all making a difference in people's lives. So I hope you enjoy the episode. And until next time and next week, I will see you then. Bye.